Okay, I'm going to test one more time. It's Teresa. Can someone speak?
Hi, Teresa. This is Shasta. I can hear you great.
You're great too. Yay. Thank
I
you.
think we're all set.
Thank you very much.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, it's time to go, but I don't see any city council members. Am I missing something? There's Ben.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
All we have is Ben and Wardo's here. Yeah, Wardo's here. And Nat.
that's three of us. And Nat?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right, we got a quorum. Madam Clerk, are we ready to go?
I am ready if there is a quorum.
Okay, there is a quorum. Let's kick this thing off.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Richmond City Council. Actually, no, the special meeting of the Richmond Housing Authority.
Right.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Yes. Vice Chair Bates.
Present.
Councilmember Choi.
Director Choi?
Commissioner Choi.
Commissioner Choi. There we go. Here.
Commissioner Johnson is absent. Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Myrick.
Here.
Commissioner Willis is absent. And Chair Butt.
Here.
And Lieutenant Commissioner Scott is absent. Okay. And for the record, the time was 6:26. Statement of conflict of interest, are there any? Hearing none. Under the Housing Authority, this is agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Okay, now we need a motion to approve the Housing Authority consent calendar.
I say,
Is there a motion?
I move the item.
Okay, motion
Yeah.
by Martinez,
we got 11:14.
Second,
second by Choi. Please call the roll for a vote.
Vice Chair Bates,
Yes,
Commissioner Choi,
yes.
Commissioner Johnson is absent. Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Myrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis, Chair Butt,
Yes.
and Lieutenant Commissioner Scott is absent. Both motion passes.
Okay, the special meeting of the Richmond Housing Authority is now adjourned, and we will be transitioning to the regular meeting of the Richmond City Council. And, my agenda doesn't have a roll call on it, but
Okay,
maybe you should do it anyway.
yes, we should, but it's 6:28 right now. So we
Oh,
have to wait
okay.
until
Oh, we
6:30.
gotta wait till 6:30, okay.
yeah.
Well, meanwhile, we can have a Christmas tie contest. Everybody can show off their Christmas ties and we'll vote on which one's the best.
13 miles.
Mine is more of a Hanukkah tie.
Okay. All right, we'll allow that in the competition. Anybody else want to compete? That looks like it's between Ben and me, huh? I'll tell you what, I'll
Eduardo's got a nice tie.
Yeah, mine's a autumn festival.
yeah.
Does that count?
Well, I'll do the gentlemanly thing, and I'll drop out and defer to Ben. Ben's gonna be
This isn't
That's
even
gotta
a
be-
Christmas tie.
he's gonna be leaving us soon, and he deserves to get some recognition before he leaves. So
I vote for Ben.
yeah, there you go. It's unanimous. Ben, you're the winner.
Well, great. It's
Would you like to
my,
make a
my
speech?
dad
Would
thanks
like to
you.
make
It's
a
one of his
speech?
old ties.
Yeah. Would you like to make a speech?
Not really, but I appreciate the goodwill from my colleagues.
Okay, I have 6:30, Madam Clerk. So I think we can move on.
Okay, under the Richmond City Council, we're going to take a roll call. Vice Mayor Bates. Absent for the roll
Present.
call. Okay. Councilmember Choi,
Here?
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Martinez,
Here.
Councilmember Myrick,
Here.
Councilmember Willis is absent. Mayor Butt,
Here.
thank you. Item A, statement of conflict of interest. Are there any? Hearing none. Under agenda review, I have some announcements to make.
Okay.
The first announcement is a correction to item G4. There's a correction to the staff report, resolution, and side letter for item G4 on tonight's agenda. Those items currently read that the new expiration date of the MOU will be June 30th, 2022. There was a typographical error and the document should read expiration date of December 31st, 2022. The next announcement, items to be continued to January 19th are agenda items G2 and H1. And then the third announcement, items requested to be removed from the consent calendar by the public are G9, G15, and G17.
G9, G15, and G17.
G9, 15, and G17,
Wow, all removed, huh?
all removed from the consent calendar to
Okay,
be discussed
and
at the end of the agenda.
okay, and I'm gonna remove item G2.
G2, G2 has been continued to January 19th.
Oh, it has?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, I don't
G2,
need G2. I mean, wait a minute. G12, I'm sorry.
oh, G12. Okay.
Yeah, G12.
Is that you're gonna continue it or you're taking it off to be discussed?
I'm gonna take it off and make a change to it.
Okay, so we're gonna, okay,
It's off.
okay. And this is an announcement for the audience. Anyone may make an oral comment, even if a written comment has previously been submitted. However, each speaker may only raise their hand once to make one oral public comment per agenda item. As we move through the agenda, I will announce the next item number and ask individuals who would like to address the council to raise their hand. After the item is read into the record, the request to speak period on the item will be closed. We'll be holding open forum very shortly, so individuals who would like to address the council under open forum should raise their hand now. To comment by video conference, click on the participants button at the bottom of your screen and select the raise hand button. And to comment by phone, press the star key and the number 9. And those are all the announcements I had for open under agenda review.
Well, before we get to the consent calendar, I'd like to put my name on.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
I'd like to put my name on the consent.
Okay,
calendar.
consent calendar.
I mean, on the open forum.
Open forum.
Sorry.
Next on the agenda, presentations, proclamations, and commendations. C1 is to recognize retirement of employees that have served with the city of Richmond for 20 years or more. And this was placed on the agenda by Vice Mayor Bates and Mayor Tomlin.
Vice Mayor, do you want to lead this off? I have a list of retired people that has 24 people on it. I don't know whether they sent it to you or not. It's but did you get that?
Yes, I received it, and I just want to suggest that we recognize individuals that have made a significant contribution to the city over a long period of time, and some of them a little bit less than 20 years, but all of them are getting ready to retire, and they're worthy of being recognized, and that was the idea, and I'm pleased that the mayor saw fit to join, and also recognizing as well as a full city council and management staff.
Well, do you want to read them off, or do you want me to?
I prefer that you read them. I'm not in a position to go back and do it.
And then something I'm also not quite sure about. I understand there's a video honoring Jim Mazorkas, and I don't know whether it's ready to go or not. Can somebody tell me?
Well, I spoke with the staff, and apparently it's 16 minutes long.
Oh,
that's a little bit unusual to make a presentation as worthy as it may be, but 16 minutes is a lengthy period of time. I suggested that we post it on Facebook and on at the end of the council meeting, where people can go on and take a look at it. Unless the meeting is short, which I doubt.
No, I think you've got the right idea. So at this time, I will read off the 24 people who have the 24 city employees who have retired sometime this year, either earlier or maybe not quite yet, but they are 2020 retirees. So I'll just read them off. Bruce Goodmiller, Carlos Pravat, Alwyn Brown, Janet Johnson, Elizabeth Kame, Veretta Edwards, Crispin Nunez, Yolanda Skelton, Elizabeth Dedios, Lindsay Mayo, Emmon Usher, Maria Blue, Cliff Calderon, Diva Cantrell, Robert Gray, Terrence Jackson, Michael Lambton, Sean Raditich, Angela Ragland, Jim Mazorkas, Levi Baca, Lino Esparza, and Mario Vaz. And thank you all for your service. You all made a big difference in the city of Richmond, and we wish you well on your next endeavors, whatever they may be. And for those of you who may not know, Jim Mazorkas, our port director, passed away on, I believe, Friday night. And we don't have any information right now about a memorial service, but we'll pass that on if and when we get it. Or maybe it was Sunday night. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was Sunday night. Okay, any council member comments on this item? You have anything to add, Vice Mayor?
I think you've covered it all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next item.
Our next item is a report from the city attorney of final decisions made, and we didn't have a closed session. So
We had one yesterday.
okay. Okay, so this item should be taken off.
That's correct.
Item E is a report from the city manager.
Good evening. Mine is just really short. For those folks who are celebrating Christmas later this week, I just want to really wish everybody a wonderful time, hopefully celebrating at home and only with those in your household, so that we can enter the new year in a bit safer situation than the one we're currently experiencing. It's really, really important. So I hope it is a wonderful time at home with those in your household.
Next on the agenda is open forum. Each speaker shall be allowed up to 2 minutes. And I'll just read the comments that came in by 1 o'clock today under open forum. One comment received by Cordell Hindler stated that he was going to miss Janet Johnson because she has been a wonderful employee. And there were 2 comments received in opposition of item G2 on the consent calendar. One comment received in support of item G13. And it looks like we have 8 individuals that would like to address the council. Just one.
Okay. The speakers are Frank DeMarinis, Ron Sundergrill, Tarnell Abbott, Nyla Francis, Gail McLaughlin, phone number ending in 6955, David Reinerston, and Mike Parker, and Council Member Martinez as well. Franco DeMarinis, you will have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Get a thumbs up, thank you. My name is Grover DeMarinis. I'm the president of the Panhandle Annex Neighborhood Council. Thank you for listening to us all tonight. I know we speak to you quite often, and I appreciate your patience with us as always. I'd like to discuss my neighborhood, which is the Panhandle Annex. It is not the annex. It is not the Southwest Annex. It is a separate neighborhood. We are separated by a freeway, 80, in fact, one of the largest freeways in the country from the Richmond Annex. And we are more closely attached to the Southwest Annex, though we are separated by a major thoroughfare of Carlson. My neighbors are a very close-knit neighborhood. We're one of the smaller neighborhoods in Richmond. We work together. We talk a lot. We're really big into communication, and we're really big into activism. We're a very ecologically conscious neighborhood. We care a lot about our environment. We care a lot about not only the physical environment, but also the emotional environment of our neighborhood, and the well-being of all our neighbors in our incredibly diverse neighborhood. I myself am a public school teacher. I was very fortunate to be able to buy a house at a time when the market was low. I could not afford a house in this neighborhood now. And I really enjoy living here. I really like my neighbors, and I love the diversity of my neighborhood in the Panhandle Annex. I'd like to discuss with you a little bit about the cleanup we constantly do in our neighborhood. We do it 2 or more times a year. Last year, I think we did it 4 times, in fact. where our neighbors come together. We go along South 55th, which is a real issue with trash and litter. South 55th does have street sweeping signs along it, though it is constantly covered in trash and litter. And we go out there multiple times a year to pick up that trash and litter and pile it up so that the abatement team can pick it up efficiently. We know that they are taxed in this city and there's a lot of illegal dumping they deal with, and we like to do our part to help the city and help the environment and keep the place clean and safe for ourselves and all our neighbors here in the city of Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ron Sundergill. Ron, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to speak very quickly here this evening. Thank you, members of the council of Richmond. This is my first time speaking before you, and it has to do with the resolution that you'll be considering under the consent calendar 3-13, which is the reconnaissance study to analyze the appropriateness of establishing a national park service unit or a national park monument that covers the history of the Black Panther Party in the United States. I work for the National Parks Conservation Association, and which is based in Oakland. Well, my office is based in Oakland. The national office is in Washington, D.C. But being in Oakland, I know how important the history of the Black Panther Party is, not just for the city of Oakland, but for the entire state and in fact the entire country because of the national significance of the Black Panther Party. So getting this reconnaissance study done through the National Park Service will, we hope, eventually lead to the establishment of a national park or a national monument that would tell this history. You know, when the Black Panther Party emerged in the 1960s, you know, it quickly became an important part of our civil rights history and overall history. And unfortunately, up until now, it's been ignored, except by folks locally who've done a lot. But we need to make it, we need to make sure that we now recognize it for its national significance. So I appreciate your support for the resolution.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tarnell Abbott. Tarnell, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Before you start the clock, could you clarify what items were pulled off the agenda?
Sure. It's G9, G12, G15, and G17.
So G15 is going to be heard later, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm having trouble hearing. Okay, and G2 is off?
G2 is off. It's continued to a future date, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And how about with G17?
G17 is pulled.
And H1 is put to another day, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. You know, when the clerk speaks, sometimes I can't always hear her, so sorry about that. Okay, you can give me my minutes and I'll try to be brief.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to remember Ethel Dotson, and I wanted to remind some of you who are listening in the world out there, or some of you up on the city council dais, about Ethel Dotson. And Ethel was an African-American warrior woman, and she was a co-founder along with Sherry Paget of the CAG, having to do with Zeneca and what you guys are calling Campus Bay Development. And Ethel died, I think I forget what year it was, but she was not that old. She was in her middle late 60s. And she believed that her cancer that she died of was caused by growing up next door in the Seaport housing, which was World War II housing, which was located right next door to where the Zeneca site is. She and her brother Whitney Dotson were both members of the CAG for many years, and they both spoke loudly and quietly, respectively, because Whitney was very soft in his mannerism, but he was also a warrior. They spoke clearly about how this was an issue of environmental injustice. In other words, it's an environmental justice issue to put housing in Richmond on top of a toxic waste site that's never been cleaned up. And when you vote for that to go forward, you're voting for it to continue to not to be okay where it should not be okay. So please remember Ethel Dotson and also Whitney Dotson. Thank you.
Time has expired. Thank you. The next speaker is Nyla Francis. Nyla, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready. Nyla? Hello? Okay, I'll move on to Gail for now. I'll come back to Nyla. Gail, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. You can go ahead and start.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is Gail McLaughlin, and I want to lend my voice to the other voices in support of the Black Panther Party resolution. We have quite a history of the Black Panther Party in Richmond. The Richmond History Museum held a wonderful exhibit of this history a few years back. Also, when I was mayor, I was proud to give a Black History Month proclamation to Bobby Seale, one of the founders of the Black Panther Party. Various members of his family attended it, and it was a really nice honoring. A couple of you probably remember it. Also, it was exciting to have Black Panther Party leader Elaine Brown be the main speaker at our 2009 Sisters in Solidarity event. In addition, Bobby Bowens was a Black Panther Party leader and more recently was also part of our local progressive movement here in Richmond. Sadly, Bobby passed on in 2012. I have stayed in touch, however, with his daughter, Leanne Bowen, who lives in LA and does great progressive activism in that part of our state. So I fully support this resolution and thank you, Mayor Butt, for placing this on the agenda. It would be a wonderful opportunity to have the Park Service move forward with this for Oakland in remembrance of the whole Bay Area and the Bay Area's lifting up and support historically and now for the Black Panther Party. So thank you for this opportunity to share those thoughts.
Thank you. I'll try Nyla Francis again. Nyla, are you there? Hello? Nyla Francis?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, you have
Okay.
2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a Richmond resident of 8 years. I'm calling in because I'm strongly advocating against the proposed rolling brownouts and company reductions to the Richmond Fire Department. So my story is I'm a former paramedic and I worked in Richmond for several years before becoming a supervisor for the private ambulance company that provides 911 response in Richmond and Contra Costa County. In addition, I was also on a panel last year regarding the closure of Doctors Hospital and the impacts to West County residents. So I'm very concerned about the impact of delayed 911 response times to medical emergencies. To be clear, these reductions will impact response times, not may, but will. Expecting the fire department to meet the same standards with less resources is just not realistic. There's going to be delays. So also being down a hospital in West Contra Costa County has done a few things. We're seeing longer ambulance patient offload times at surrounding hospitals. And what that does is it reduces the amount of available ambulances at any given time in the 911 system. So you combine that with longer fire department response times, that impact is going to be felt directly by residents in Richmond experiencing a medical emergency. So it just highlights the need for continued timely response by the fire department. In addition, 911 calls are they're complex. It's not always sufficient to have an ambulance. You need additional resources to move patients and ride into the hospital for sicker, higher acuity people. So my question to the council is this proposed reality acceptable to everyone? Richmond is historically underserved, and disasters have a disproportionate impact here, the pandemic being a good example of that. So I guess my question is, why cut back resources that serve our community in their time of need? I would strongly urge the city to find different solutions of addressing the budget that don't reduce emergency medical services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is phone number ending in 6955. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please state your name for the record. Phone number ending in 6955.
That's Naomi Williams.
Okay. You can go ahead and start.
Okay. My name is Naomi Williams, and I live in Pullman Neighborhood Council. I'm the president. And in the area of Beck and South Street, we're trying to keep that part up there really good, but somebody have moved in 4 or 5 RVs, and with them, they have brought trash. And we have small kids in that area. And we try to get the city to do something, but to date, nobody have done anything. So will you guys please help us? And as far as Ethel Dotson is concerned, the neighborhood is trying to have a street named after her. And that's South Street. That's right in front of the International Hotel, where she tried so hard to have put on the historical list. That was never able to do that, but I think we put it in the historical district, which haven't really done anything. So will you please try to get somebody over here to clean up that area, Beck and South.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is David Reinerson. David, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. Hello?
Hi, this is actually not David Reinerson. It's Debbie Bayer, but I'm using his computer.
Okay.
So sorry about that. And I just want to clarify also. So G2 has been pulled from the agenda totally?
It's been continued, yes.
Yes.
It's being continued. Okay, and G15 is going to be discussed later?
Correct.
Okay. The only thing I would say, and this is in response to what Ms. Williams said, was that if there are RVs and if there is a mess, that the city could really help by putting up a dumpster site, so that the way they do on big apartment buildings, like there's an apartment building in my neighborhood, and there's a dumpster in the parking lot behind the apartment building, and because too much garbage is being generated without a place to put it. And if you give people a place to put their garbage, I think you're going to find out that nobody wants to live in a place surrounded by garbage, and they will put it away. So sometimes you have to give people it's like social engineering. Here, you can put your garbage here and see if that would work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mike Parker. Mike, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. Mike Parker, Richmond resident. I want to thank Mayor Butt for putting item G13 on the consent calendar. I think, however, that the honoring of the Black Panther Party deserves more attention than just passing a point and then filing it. The Black Panther Party is not only an important part of national history with roots in Richmond and in Oakland, but it's not just about history. It's about today. It's a reminder that under the right political circumstances, the US government, in this case in form of the FBI, in coordination with local police departments, infiltrated opposition groups used agent provocateurs, and even engaged in the murder of people struggling for social justice. That's in the United States, and that's in our lifetimes, or at least in some of our lifetimes. It could happen again under the right conditions. The issues that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, that's its full name, organized around are still with us. The relationship between the police and the Black community, the poverty that exists in America, the economic injustice that exists in America. It's about who has political power. So this resolution should remind us of what we still have to do, not just what has happened. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Councilmember Martinez. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. You're on mute.
Thank you. The city of Richmond has 3 sister cities, and we have robust relationships with those sister cities. One of them, Joshan, was a sister city that Jim Masorkas took special interest in. And today we received a letter from Joshan speaking about Jim Masorkas, and I'd like to read that quickly. To Richmond City Council, it is with deep sadness that we got the news of the passing of Jim. About 20 days ago, he told us that he was infected with coronavirus, but was not too sick. We all worried about him, but he was optimistic. The day before his passing, he said he felt better. We all thought he would beat the virus and recover, but unexpectedly, the news we got was a bolt from the blue. Our friendship with Jim began in September 2012, when we spent a month studying and living in Richmond as members of the language and cross-cultural communication training class from Joshan. Jim, on the committee of sister cities, was in charge of the training arrangements. He arranged everything for us, including renting apartments, the official activities, the weekend homestays and trips, and so on. Jim was a humorous, warm, considerate, and empathetic man. We always had a good time with him, both in Richmond and at home. Every time he attended the International Island Tourism Conference, he was the emissary of sister cities loved by our Joshan media. Jim was always busy for work, for family, for sister cities. However, he was full of enthusiasm for life and always shared his love of life with us. During the past several days, everyone in our class, no matter what we were doing or where we were, couldn't help seeing Jim's smiles and replaying the scenes when we got together in our mind. Jim is gone, but our memories of him are very much alive. There are a lot of pictures of us when we were together in his phone album, and the same for us. We miss him so very much. Our eternal thanks to Jim. Thank him for everything he did for us. Thank him for the happiness and warmth he brought to us. We send our heartfelt condolences to his family. Smooth journey, Jim. Members of the Language and Cross-Cultural Communication Training Class for Joshan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, I have an email from Karen Slaughter saying that there are 6 people who are trying to get in to speak on open forum about the Black Panther item. Can you let them in to speak?
I'll see about 3 people right now with their hands raised.
Okay, well, whoever's on there and has their hand
4,
raised.
5, 6.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's
Let's let them go ahead and speak.
Okay.
I think some of them are from Oakland, and they don't quite understand how we do business in Richmond. So we gotta give them a break. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jesua.
Okay, I'll take Kieran Slaughter, Frederica Newton, Nathaniel Gray, Mike Yu, Sarah de la Cerda Uberti, Carol U. Johnson, and Terrence Barkis. Kieran Slaughter, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
Thank you so much. It just wasn't clear that the consent calendar was being taken now. So my apologies for that. But I just want to, introduce myself, Kieran Slaughter, board member of the Huey P. Newton Foundation. And first off, I want to say rest in peace to Jim Masorkas, the former port director. My condolences to his family. I worked closely with him for 10 years in Richmond. And so regarding this item, I want to thank the mayor, the city council, as well as the former mayor for supporting this historic resolution, supporting the reconnaissance survey. which we strongly believe will lead to the establishment of a national park unit for the Black Panther Party. As stated in the agenda report, despite the party's legendary role in the civil rights movement, the federal government has yet to provide national recognition dedicated to the education of the public about the party's contributions to social progress nationwide. Furthermore, there isn't a central location where citizens, students, and visitors can receive objective history and interpretation of the Black Panther Party. I mean, there's so many connections from the movement in the 60s to today's racial awakening and reckoning. However, large people just don't know. To bring it kind of to the youth, some of the most famous contemporary musical rap and R&B artists like Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, The Game, Anderson .Paak, Nas, Busta Rhymes, Ice Cube, T.I., Public Enemy. It goes on and on. They've either referenced the Panthers in their music or donned black berets and leather coats, and so many of their younger listeners had no idea what they're talking about. In addition, you have references in cinema, including Marvel's, movie about Black Panther by Richmond's own and my fellow St. Mary's alum Ryan Coogler that references the history, but it just goes over some people's heads. So Richmond's role in this history is extremely significant and is often overlooked or forgotten about, and thus the impetus for this historic resolution. I want to thank Melissa McCreary from the Richmond Museum of History, who hosted an exhibit about the Panthers, as well as providing a letter of support. I also want to thank Tom Leatherman, the superintendent of Rosie the Riveter, and the other 3 parks who helped co-author and received the National Park Service Civil Rights Grant to collect the oral history of former party members in the Bay Area. Unfortunately, that was rescinded by the current administration, but we're hopeful that the Biden administration will reinstate it. I also want to thank the National Parks Conservation Association for their partnership. And in closing, I support the adoption of this resolution and look forward to a day when the people of all walks of life can step foot in a world-class visitor center.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Next speaker is Frederica Newton. Frederica, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much. My name is Frederica Newton. I'm president of the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation. My husband was the late Dr. Huey Newton, and I'm the proud mother of Kieran Slaughter, and I'd like to keep this very short. But I'm so grateful that the Richmond City Council and the city of Richmond, thank you for supporting the national recognition of the Black Panther Party by supporting a resolution requesting the National Park Service to perform a reconnaissance survey that will clearly indicate the need to establish a National Park Service historical site or national monument here in Oakland or the East Bay. And again, thank you so much for your support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Nathalio Gray. Nathalio, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Hello, thank you so much for taking my call. I just want to get on the call and say I support G13 as a Morehouse College alumnus, African-American Studies major. It's critically important that we have our history reflected in the Bay Area, and for anyone locally, nationally, or globally who comes to the city of Richmond, it would be great for them to have an opportunity to learn more about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. As a father, as a husband, and also as a minister, I want my children, my family, and my congregants to have the opportunity to learn right here in the heart of the Bay Area in Richmond without having to go beyond to learn somewhere else. So thank you so much for what you're doing to make this happen. And again, I just want to say I support G13. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mike Yu. Mike, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Hello, thank you so much for taking me as well. My name is Mike Uberti. I'm a proud Richmond resident. I'm also here to speak in support of G13. When you think about Richmond, as a former city employee, I had an opportunity to see the great impact that the Rosie the Riveter Center had on Richmond and what a positive energy it brought. And I know when I heard about this item, how the Black Panther Party is such a great part of the Bay's history, especially here in the East Bay, Richmond, Oakland. And, Richmond is always here to support Oakland and vice versa. And I think this would be a great opportunity for both cities to really share and demonstrate our shared history and what a great impact, as the other speakers have mentioned, the Panther Party has had across the nation. It's amazing that it started here in the East Bay. And I really appreciate the council supporting this item. And I'm expressing my support for it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sarah de la Cerda Uberti. Sarah, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. Sarah? Sarah? Hello? Okay, I will try to come back to Sarah. The next speaker will be, sorry, give me a second. Carol U. Johnson. Carol, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. Carol? Carol? Your audio sounds a little messed up. Hello?
Can you hear me?
You're breaking up. I'll try to.
Gosh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Mayor G13, and I also want to take time. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, I
Go
just
ahead.
want to take time to mention Denzel Dowell. It was his death at the hands of the Contra Costa County Sheriff that brought the Black Panthers to Richmond. So it's important that we remember what happened to him, and we still have a long way to go to stop police brutality and corruption. And I don't know if any of his family members are still in the area, but hopefully we'll just keep his name alive and never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Terrence Barkis. Terrence, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I am also calling in to support the G13 resolution for the Black Panther Party National Park resolution. As a proud Bay Area resident, born and raised in the Bay Area, representing Morehouse and representing the Bay Area wherever I go, always been proud that of the Black Panther Party history and being from the Bay Area. Raised kids in the Bay Area, so definitely looking forward to having a place where my kids can learn more about the Black Panther Party and their impact on our history. So again, just supporting the G13 resolution, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. I will try to go back to Sarah de la Cerda Uberti, and the last 3 speakers after that will be Xavier Buck, Solomon Wilkins, Kamal Edwards. Sarah, you will have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. Sarah?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, so I'm a resident of Richmond, and I would just like to add my support for G13 and the resolution for the national park or national monument dedicated to the Black Panther Party. I think it is so important to have a space that honors and celebrates the history of the Black Panther Party and also continues their legacy to the communities in Oakland, Richmond, and the Bay Area. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Xavier Buck. Xavier, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
Hi, this is Xavier Buck, the director of the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation and a former homeowner in the city of Richmond. If the city of Richmond passes this resolution G13 in favor or concerning the Black Panther Party and the recognition of National Park, they would be the first city in the country to do so. And I think that's incredibly important because the first campaign that really put the Black Panthers on the map was in North Richmond about Denzel Dowell. And I just think it's a perfect synergy historically and contemporary for the city of Richmond to pass this resolution and honor the history of the Black Panther Party. Most people say, this is an Oakland history, but it's also a Richmond history and it's a Bay Area history. And I think it's a beautiful thing if the city of Richmond passes this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Solomon Wilkins. Solomon, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready. Solomon?
Hey, how you doing? Good evening. Thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I just wanted to call in briefly to show my support and solidarity for G13. I'm an Oakland resident, an ex-Richmond resident. I'm also a chief diversity officer for a tech company in the Bay Area. And one of the things we talk a lot about, obviously, is race relations. And, you know, it's my job to provide context for, you know, employees and communities that we serve. And the Black Panther Party has been a topic that we've talked about. And I feel like this is an amazing opportunity for the city of Richmond to be trailblazers when it comes to adopting such a monumental G13. It would just be monumental for the city of Richmond as a whole. It would be monumental for the Black Panther Party. And it would, you know, the city of Richmond would be trendsetters in this space. So again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm a Black man with a Black wife with Black children. And I see this as an amazing opportunity for Richmond to take the lead on a really important subject.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Kamal Edwards. Kamal, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I want to piggyback off what Mr. Buck said and what Mr. Wilkins said. I think, and first of all, but before I do that, I want to kind of congratulate the city of Richmond. This is truly a progressive topic. And as was stated earlier, the city of Richmond is really, truly trailblazing when they kind of put this proposition up for a vote. You know, for too long, the Black Panthers have been kind of villainized in history. And what I think the city of Richmond will be doing will provide an opportunity for that context that Mr. Wilkins was talking about. Give people a real opportunity to hear about what the real work that the Black Panthers performed right there in the city of Richmond and throughout the Bay Area. Again, for too long, I think the Black Panthers and many of the members were kind of villainized, kind of seen as negative, but the true reality of it was that they were really providing a service for the community that wasn't provided by the government, and they did this throughout the Bay Area. We can talk about Berkeley, we can talk about Oakland, we can talk about Richmond. All of these places they were influential on. And so I think the city of Richmond needs to adopt this G13 proposal. I think they need to move forward with it, and I think it really speaks to the people of the city of Richmond that they've come out and they've really done a progressive, forward-thinking kind of movement out there in the city of Richmond. And this goes right along with what you've been doing for so many years, and I'm so proud of you as a Bay Area resident and as a former owner of property in the city of Richmond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I see one more hand by the name of Marcellus. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready. Marcellus?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes, my name is Marcellus Ashley. I live here in the city of Richmond, been a resident here for 47 years. I basically was just listening in on this G13, and I just want to share some information. I'm from San Francisco. I was born and raised in San Francisco, but moved here in Richmond when I was a teenager. But as a kid, I remember the Black Panther Party. And I understand the bad rap that the Black Panther Party has gotten. But today we see it right here in the city of Richmond, those free lunches that are all over Richmond for our kids. The Black Panthers made that possible for each and every family from then on up to now. Breakfast, lunch, people feeding people. So I too support what G13, I believe it is. I support that to go forward and have this resolution, and I'm looking forward to groundbreaking and all the ceremonies for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see no more hands. There are no more speakers.
Are we moving to the next item?
Please move to the next item.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is we need a motion to approve the consent calendar And just as a reminder, item G2 was continued to the 19th of January. Item G9, G12, G15, and G17 were removed from the consent calendar to be discussed at the end of the meeting. And I also would like to invite individuals that would like to speak on item H2 to raise their hands now. So we need a motion.
Motion on the consent calendar, motion by Martinez.
Second by Johnson.
And second by Johnson. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bates. Councilmember Choi.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Myrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis is absent. We'll go back to Vice Mayor Bates.
Yes.
And Mayor Butt.
Yes.
The motion passes with Councilmember Willis absent. Now we're moving to item H2. And again, individuals that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button if you're joining us by video, or the star and the number 9 key if you're joining us by phone. And item H2 is to announce recent resignations from City of Richmond boards, commissions, and committees, and announce vacancies as of December 16th, 2020, and ask that interested individuals send applications to the city clerk.
Thank you. This is your monthly reminder of openings on boards and commissions that that you can serve on. And I'll just go down the list. The Arts and Culture Commission has 11 seats with 3 vacancies. The Commission on Aging, 13 seats with 3 vacancies. The Community Police Review Commission, 9 seats, 0 vacancies. Good job, people. Contra Costa Mosquito and Vector Control, 1 seat, but 0 vacancies. People are really stepping up. Design Review Board, 7 seats with 1 vacancy, but I'm getting ready to fill that. Department of Children and Youth Oversight Board, 15 positions and 4 vacancies. ECIA Grant Review Committee, 5 seats, 1 vacancy. ECIA Transportation Oversight Committee, 5 seats, 1 vacancy. Economic Development Commission, 15 seats with 2 vacancies. Historic Preservation Commission, 7 seats, 0 vacancies. Housing Advisory Commission, 7 seats, 1 vacancy. Human Rights and Human Relations Commission, 9 seats with 3 vacancies. The Library Commission, 5 seats with 1 vacancy. The Oakland Airport Commission Noise Forum has 2 seats, but they've both been filled, and we will be participating in that for the first time in several years. Thank you, people, for stepping up. The Personnel Board, 5 seats, 1 vacancy. That's a long-standing vacancy. I could really use somebody to serve on the Personnel Board. The Planning Commission, 7 seats and 1 vacancy, but I'm getting ready to fill that. Public Art Advisory Committee, 7 seats with 2 vacancies. Recreation and Parks Commission, 9 seats with 1 vacancy. Reimagining Public Safety Community Task Force, 21 seats, but 0 vacancies. I understand 1 will be coming up. Shimada Commission, 11 seats, 1 vacancy. Urban Forest Advisory Committee, 11 seats, 1 vacancy. Workforce Development Board, 39 seats with 13 vacancies. The Youth Council, 11 seats with 4 vacancies. And finally, the Joshan Commission, 11 seats with 1 vacancy. And I just got to say, people have really been stepping up. These boards and commissions have never been filled more than they are now, but all of them have almost a lot of them have seats available. You can get an application online from the city clerk's office. Just go to the city clerk's page on the city's website. And I urge people to step up. One of the things I dream of is being able to make this report sometime and report that there are no vacancies. So help me do that. Thank you.
Okay. We have 2 speakers, and we did receive a comment by the 1 p.m. Deadline. The comment received was from Cordell Himmler, and he states that he received emails from Richmond and De Anza High regarding the vacancies on the Oversight Board, Library Commission, and Youth Council. And we have 2 more speakers.
Okay, the speakers are Franco Demarinis and Tarnell Abbott. I'll take Franco first. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start when you're ready.
I apologize, folks. I'm a little lost on which item we're on. Are we on H1 or H2?
We're on H2. H1 was continued.
What does continued mean? I'm sorry.
It's
That's to the
continued
next
to
meeting.
another meeting. Yeah,
I apologize. That's what I was going to speak on. Let me not waste any more of your time. Thank you.
it's okay. Thank you. And we'll go to Tarnell Abbott. Tarnell, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start when you're ready.
I tried to lower my hand. This isn't my item.
Okay, thank you. So no speakers.
Okay, that will bring us back to the consent calendar, item G9. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Any individuals that would like to speak on item G9, please raise your hand now by pressing the raise hand button or the star and the number 9 key. After I read the item into the record, your opportunity to sign up to speak will be closed. Item G9 is to adopt a resolution approving the city's inventory of leased and owned properties pursuant to Government Code Section 50569, declaring 14 parcels as surplus land and 71 parcels as exempt surplus land in accordance with the Surplus Lands Act. And right now we only have 1 hand raised to speak.
Mayor Butt, since this item was pulled, staff has prepared a presentation. Would you like us to commence with the presentation, or how would you like to proceed this evening?
Yeah, go ahead and make the staff presentation, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So good evening, Mayor Butt and City Council members. This evening, you'll receive an update on the city's inventory of owned properties and the process by which staff is determining and recommending surplus properties and exempt surplus properties owned by the City of Richmond. I would like to thank City Manager's Office Economic Development staff, Thomas Amolo, Gabino Arredondo, Lena Velasco, and Roberta Feliciana in the Planning Department, Engineering Patrick Phelan, and in IT Roy Evron, as well as Shannon Moore from the City's Attorney's Office, who I believe is also on the line this evening in the event that there are questions. We have received 1 question in particular regarding a parcel on First Street. So at the conclusion of the presentation, we'll talk about that parcel in particular. I do want to remind the council that this item is brought forward this evening at your request as part of our revenue generation. Back on December 17th, 2019, Mayor Butt brought an item to the City Council regarding revenue enhancement and cost recovery measures. And over the last year, staff have been working diligently in the City Manager's Office as well as interdepartmentally to ensure that we maximize revenue and decrease expenditures wherever possible. The item before you tonight is before you to comply with AB 1846, as well as to ensure that we're working towards cost recovery. I'm going to turn it over now to Thomas Amolo, who will walk through the presentation, and I, along with Gabino Arredondo, Thomas Amolo, and Shannon will be available for questions at the conclusion. Thank you.
I'll be starting in just 1 second. I need to get my presentation up. Hold on with me for 1 second, please. Good evening. My name is Thomas Amolo, and today we'll be discussing an item of recommended action of adopt a resolution approving the city's inventory of leased and owned properties pursuant to Government Code Section 50569, declaring 14 parcels as surplus and 71 parcels as exempt surplus in accordance to AB 1486. So good evening, Mayor Butt and members of Richmond City Council. My name is Thomas Amolo, and I'm a management analyst in the City Manager's Office Economic Development Division. Today, I'll be discussing the methodologies used to analyze the City of Richmond's parcels to determine parcels which are for agency use, exempt surplus properties, or surplus properties. Through this process, the City of Richmond will be in compliance with state law, which requires that on or before December 31st of each year, a local agency shall make an inventory of all lands held, owned, or controlled by it or any of its departments, agencies, or authorities to determine what land, if any, is in excess of its foreseeable need, and to declare that land is surplus and is not necessary for agency use or is exempt surplus. To analyze city properties, city staff use ArcGIS. This is a powerful software that allows analysts to display quantitative and qualitative information with maps and figures. The strength of ArcGIS is that one can figuratively stack multiple layers of information based on location that can then be compared to each other. For example, in the figure above, we're able to quantify the real world into multiple layers, including land use, elevation, ownership, streets, and residents. With this information, we can begin to see how, for example, does ownership relate with residents? Using ArcGIS, city staff created an inventory of all Richmond and successor agency parcels by combining shapefiles for city and successor agencies. Following this analysis, the preliminary findings are that the city owns 433 parcels. Next, city staff determined parcels that are for agency use. To accomplish this, staff use ArcGIS spatial join geoprocess, which combines multiple layers of information into one data set. Using this software, staff determine parcels designated for agency use by identifying parcels that are used for buildings, parks and open space, water bodies, or roads. City staff then cross-reference the remaining parcels against the engineering and wastewater's database of properties to identify other uses for parcels that may not have been captured through the geospatial process. For example, parcels that are set aside in subdivision maps or remnant parcels from road construction. At the conclusion of this analysis, city staff determined that out of the 433 city parcels, 348 are set aside for city use and 85 parcels are not necessary for agencies' use. Of the 85 parcels that are identified not for agency use, city staff then reviewed the remaining parcels against the criteria for surplus land to determine parcels that would be considered exempt surplus and therefore would not need to adhere to procedures laid out in AB 1486. A full list of these 11 exemptions, A through K, can be found at the conclusion of this presentation, but provided here are 3 criteria predominantly used in this analysis. Criteria B, which is minimum lot size, was a primary reason for exemption of a majority of the parcels. So after the full analysis was completed, the findings are that the City of Richmond has 14 surplus parcels, 71 exempt surplus parcels, and 348 parcels for agency use. City staff shared a draft of the inventory of all properties and those identified as surplus and exempt surplus lands with the management leadership team, which is composed of department heads. City staff also met with representatives from all city departments in an interdepartmental team meeting, as well as via email to review and confirm designations. Before the City of Richmond may begin taking any action to dispose of the surplus lands, the Richmond City Council must take formal action in a regular meeting to declare that the land is surplus and is not necessary for agency use. These parcels shall then be declared as either surplus or exempt surplus land and are supported by written findings. Properties that are determined as surplus will need to adhere to procedures set out in AB 1486. And these include a written notice of availability for the purpose of developing low to moderate income housing shall be sent to any local public entity. And a list of surplus properties will be sent to the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, to be included in the HCD's internet website of up-to-date listing of all notice of availabilities throughout the state. Organizations who desire to purchase or lease surplus lands for the purpose of developing low to moderate income housing will notify in writing to the city within 60 days of the agency's notice of availability of surplus land. Once the city receives notifications of interest, the agency must negotiate in good faith for a minimum of 90 days to determine a mutually satisfactory sale price, or lease term. In addition to adhering to just the procedures set out in AB 1486, the city staff are also creating a map on the Transparent Richmond webpage. This map will include all 14 surplus properties and will include a pop-out with additional information on each parcel, including Contra Costa County's Assessor Office parcel map, a description of the site, one-page notice of availability, and any other documents that pertain to that parcel that would be important for moving forward with the development. In addition to the parcels designated as surplus lands, the City of Richmond has additional parcels that are suitable for marketing. Of the parcels designated exempt surplus lands due to lot size, some parcels may be marketable for development by assembling one or more parcels together. These parcels will not need to adhere to procedures set out in AB 1486, AE the 60-day notice of availability. City staff will also create an inventory of exempt surplus land that are too small to develop and cannot be combined for development, little sliver parcels. These properties, some of which are in residents' backyard, may be transferred to adjacent property owners. And lastly, additionally, city staff have identified parcels for agency use or that are considered exempt surplus land that are suitable to transfer to local homeowners associations or local park districts for the purpose of providing parks and open space. City staff will compile a list of these properties and reach out to organizations such as the East Bay Regional Park District to explore interest and the process for which these organizations may acquire these parcels for expansion of recreational spaces. City staff also hosted 2 virtual stakeholder meetings over Zoom. The invitation for this event was distributed to over 1,500 local and statewide organizations with an interest in development of low to moderate income housing. The meeting was attended by over 40 stakeholders who gained a deeper understanding of the City of Richmond's process for identifying properties as for agency use, surplus properties, or exempt surplus. Additionally, attendees learned how to be included in the California Housing and Community Development list of organizations who will receive notice of availabilities and answered any questions that stakeholders may have had. Documents that were discussed and shared with the stakeholders were also uploaded to the City Manager's Office Economic Development Real Estate webpage, where they are right now for any resident or organization to go and look through. In addition, city staff have continued to answer questions from stakeholders through phone calls and email exchanges. So next steps. City staff will provide the approved list of surplus land to the California Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st. HCD then will supply the information of the Department of General Services to be included in a publicly available and searchable database of state and local surplus lands. Additionally, city staff will create a short list of appraisers for development teams who are interested in the development of low to moderate income housing to use in the bidding for properties. A formalized process will be created for reviewing and scoring submittals for surplus lands, including criteria such as the number of affordable housing units and purchase price, for example. Staff will also formalize a process for scoring proposals for the additional properties in market that don't need to adhere to procedures laid out in AB 1486. Lastly, city staff will identify park districts and homeowners associations that are adjacent to exempt surplus properties or properties for agency use to transfer these properties for the creation of parks or open space, and also to find properties that are suitable for property transfer to adjacent property owners. And these properties are those sliver parcels that are not adequate for development and can be combined for development. And this is the recommended action. And as Shasa noted at the start of the presentation, I want to discuss in quick Quickly, the parcel in question, 538-350-043. The parcel is currently utilized without an agreement by the Happy Lot Farm Garden. Through the analysis, the parcel was identified as surplus property because the city of Richmond is not currently using it for building, park, or right-of-way. Additionally, the city does not have any formal agreement for the use of the site. As such, the property will be included in the surplus lands inventory. City staff received an inquiry about the site's designation as a surplus land, and city staff included representatives from Happy Lot in the pre-proposal meeting hosted on Thursday, November 19, 2020. Based on RSVPs received, representatives from Happy Lot Farm and Garden did not participate in the meeting. City staff additionally reached out directly to the Happy Lot Farm and Garden representative to discuss the item and answer any questions. Staff also requested Happy Lot Farm and Garden representatives to produce any formal written agreement between the city and the organization for the use of the park to justify exclusion from being included in the inventory of the surplus land. None were produced. The site is currently zoned residential RL2 and can accommodate up to 15 units per net acre. Here are a couple photos of the Happy Lot Farm. And thank you. We can take any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from council members?
Councilman
Martinez.
Thank you. I was curious about the photos that you took of the Happy Lot. I understand that there was a rammed earth structure that was there. Did that fall down? Is it not there?
The photos we're taking this weekend, so they're the current conditions.
Right. So you didn't see a rammed earth structure there?
I don't know what a rammed earth structure looks like. The photos we provided are those that were taken this weekend of the current conditions. And so just to reiterate, staff's analysis is given the current housing crisis in the Bay Area and in Richmond, that we'd like to comply and recommend the City Council comply with AB 1846 and designate the site for affordable housing. We've had interest from at least 4 local nonprofit organizations for affordable housing throughout Richmond, including CHDC, Richmond Housing Neighborhood Services. There's also a land trust that's working on becoming a 501c3, as well as Richmond Community Foundation. So we've attempted to reach out to all of the local nonprofits and make them sure that they can register for these sites, and we'd like to move forward with marketing them for sale.
Okay, thank you. I was actually only asking about the photographs, and I was curious as to whether or not the photographs were a true representation of what was there.
Would you like the staff member that took the photographs to speak to you directly right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But while you're getting him, I do want to recognize that we do have a housing shortage, and properties that are available, need to be looked at in terms of housing.
Hello, Councilman Martinez. This is Gavino Redondo, project manager in the city manager's office. I took pictures of properties all around First Street. And this one was the one where Happy Lot Farm is. And so I went to each point in each block and took pictures of, since it was one of the properties that we received inquiries on. We also have Google Earth images.
Okay, no, I was just curious about the rammed earth structure that was built there. I was wondering whether or not it had fallen apart and wasn't there anymore, or whether or not it was still being used.
I don't know what that kind of structure is. However, there were 2 structures there and a car, but I haven't checked if in building if those structures are approved structures.
Okay, well, I didn't see it there, so I maybe I need to see the photographs again.
Vice Mayor Bates.
Yes, I wanted to ask, what is the emphasis upon percentage of how many rental units and how many units you anticipate for sale? Did you get the question?
Vice Mayor Bates, it depends on the size of the parcels. And so the parcels that are 3,500 square feet or larger, those are the ones that we think are more likely going to be for sale. But it also, we have to go through a process for the smaller sliver parcels, as Thomas mentioned, of negotiating with the property owners. So I would say at least there's going to be 14, and it'll go up from there.
Well, the reason I ask is that these homes are probably going to be $600,000.
Right.
It just seems to me that if we want to help young couples who are just getting started, that we could perhaps do some condos where the price would be significantly reduced and they can get some equity, and then later on they can move forward. If we're going to keep those price ranges of $500,000 and up, we're losing out on a very significant population of our community. And I hate to do that. And as I indicate, I would rather see apartments, condos, 250,000 maybe thereabouts, where individuals can get started, couples, even single people or whatever, build equity and move forward, as opposed to a bunch of rentals. Rentals, I think, create too many problems in terms of upkeep, maintenance, and so forth. People who rent don't take the same respect for the property as ownership. So
Okay.
That's just an opinion.
Well, Vice Mayor Bates, if you would like to incorporate that in a motion this evening and direct staff to prioritize developers that are working on for sale and maximizing density, we can certainly add that to the criteria.
Well, I'd like to hear from my colleagues. I don't want to make the motion to sit out there alone, but if they share some of the same vision that I have, like I said, I'm looking at young people, even not necessarily young, but people who don't have the wealth to pay $500,000 for a home, but get started. The reason I mention that is I started out as a property owner in Atchison Village when they acquired the property from the Navy. I think the property was only about $25,000 or $30,000 at that, but it enabled me to build equity and move later into a home. That's what I'm looking at as a catalyst for people who are just not wealthy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Other questions from council members?
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will Clark Road become part of the East Bay Regional Park? Has that conversation
Staff
just
have to
happened?
continue to work with the other regional agencies that are adjacent to the parcels, and we will bring back information regarding our process moving forward and how the conversations go as we need to with each other entity.
What parcel are you talking about, council member?
I'm talking about Clark Road.
Oh, okay. Other questions from council members? Do we have public speakers?
We have one speaker.
We have one public speaker.
Okay, call the public speaker.
Okay. The speaker is Gail McLaughlin. Gail, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Just where your sound is very muffled.
Okay.
Okay, let me see if I can call the speaker.
Gail, you have 2 minutes to speak. You may begin. Gail, are you there? Bear with us for just one moment. We're having some technical difficulties.
Can you hear me now?
No, it sounds the same.
We're having difficulties unmuting Gail at the moment. Bear with me for just one moment here. Gail, are you able to unmute yourself? Gail McLaughlin, are you there? Okay. We're unable to. We're unable to mute her.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, okay, thank you. Can I start?
Yes, you may begin. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, okay, good evening again, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is Gail McLaughlin again. When I was previously on the city council, I worked with Andromeda Brooks, the founder and driving force behind Happy Lot Farm and Garden, located at 45 First Street. Andromeda recently asked me to do what I could to help them. I had worked with city staff when I was previously on the council in helping provide Andromeda and other members of the Atchison Village community a place to create this community garden, which came to be known as Happy Lot Farm and Garden. I recall how Andromeda and others in the neighborhood worked hard to clean up a vacant, blighted lot and turn it into a vibrant oasis pulsing with life and a place where neighbors could feel a sense of community and have access to healthy organic food that they could grow themselves. Now, of course, we've been in a pandemic for the last 9 months, and I'm sure that hasn't been as active. But I'm speaking to you today because 45 First Street, where this garden is located, is on the surplus land properties. The volunteers on this project, in addition to provide healthy food, have provided land guardianship, beautification, deterred drug use, and helped create a safe neighborhood, among other things. I believe in this group and their efforts. It would be great if they could be removed from the list of properties, or if they could at least get a hearing and the city can help them come up with a plan that would allow them to continue this garden. So I ask that you work with Andromeda Brooks. I recognize the need for housing, whether or not a different site in the area could be located, or partially they could stay on this site, or if it's a valuable site, which I think it is for this garden, if they could simply make arrangements to stay and operate the garden at this site. So anything you could do to work with Andromeda would be great.
Thank you. That was our last speaker.
So I had a comment. You know, when I first reviewed this list of properties, I felt that that we needed to be more aggressive about trying to get rid of a lot of properties that were designated as exempt. You know, every piece of property that's not used for something specifically that the city hangs on to, the city ends up having to maintain it. The city has liabilities in case anybody's ever injured or on the property. And I just think we need to work harder to try to find potential users of the property. You know, these things, they all cost us money. I mean, if you had to give them away, the city would be money ahead. And I'll give you an example. There are properties out in the El Sobrante Valley that were left over when subdivisions were divided up back in the 1960s, and they were simply turned over to the city, and they're really not used by anybody. But the city crews spend weeks out there cutting brush in the summertime, and that's one of the reasons you're seeing your parks and your street medians not maintained, because our city crews are out there bashing brush out in the open space in the El Sobrante Valley. And we need to find a way to get out from under these. These are costing us money. They're keeping us from maintaining parks and medians. And I'm going to support this tonight, but I'm looking at it as the first chapter. We need to be more aggressive about trying to get rid of all these properties. And there's a little bit of a mention of, you know, all these remnant properties, remnants from street rights of way, they all abut some piece of private property somewhere that some private property owner would probably be happy to either purchase or, again, city would be money ahead just to give them away. So that's something I want us to work on in the future. I look at this as a start, not as the end.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm just prepared to make a motion, so I'll just go ahead and make the motion that we approve the item and make an exception for, it looks like number 5 on the list is 45 First Street, which was mentioned. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we move forward with the item. I don't know if I need to use the exact language here. We pass the resolution and approve the exempt surplus land inventory with the exception and make one exception for item number 5, which was 45 First Street, which was mentioned. That's my motion.
Mayor, before you call the roll, can we get a consultation with the city attorney's office where we don't believe that would comply with AB 1846, and so the good of the order, we just want to make sure we're being clear for the administrative record.
I'm sorry, what are we making sure complies?
Your motion, Councilmember Myrick, we have concerns that as we've outlined the process, that the motion that is proposed regarding pulling out one standalone property isn't consistent with the process that we've done thus far. And so just wanted to consult with the city attorney's office to find out if they wanted to provide any guidance before the mayor may consider the final motion. Through the mayor, if he was interested in doing so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second the motion with an amendment.
Well, wait. Let's hear from the city attorney, then we'll because that may affect the way your motion's crafted. So go ahead. Shannon? Are you the respondent on this?
Teresa, do you want me to respond? Yes, please. Okay. Thank you. So under the Surplus Lands Act, in order to dispose of or designate land as surplus or surplus exempt, you need to make findings that the parcel of the land is no longer used for the city's necessary for the city's use. And if the city council makes the determination that this is still used for the city's for the city's use, then you don't have to move forward to declare it as surplus. But I think to Shasa's point, in kind of in developing the criteria for what constitutes city use, it had to be buildings, parks, streets and right-of-ways, and waterways. And the parcel in question, I don't think fits into any of those categories, which is why it was designated as surplus. And because it's big enough to develop, residential or to develop on. So you can pull it, but I think it doesn't fit within the categories that is defined as for agency use that staff defined.
But we can pull it. It sounded like you said we can pull it. It sounds like it sounded like from what you were saying that not going for that. I'm sorry. It sounded like from what you're saying that including it on the list requires it meets this criteria. I didn't hear you say that if it doesn't meet that criteria, then that if it meets that criteria, it's automatically on the list. It sounded like you're saying it needs to meet that criteria to be on the list.
Right. I mean, the standard is it's no longer necessary for the agency's use. That's the standard.
But does that mean does that mean it's automatically on the list, or that means you can put it on the list if it meets that standard?
It means you can put it on that list if it meets that standard.
So which means you also cannot if you choose not to.
Right. And so what we're saying,
there we go.
Councilmember Myrick, is that there's 52 parks in the city that we're aware of currently, and that currently doesn't meet the criteria for a park, nor does it have an agreement. And at the current state,
I think that's fine, and y'all can work that out.
I to share for the public record because we're trying to treat all the groups that want to acquire parcels in an equitable way. And so if the council wants to pull one off, it's obviously your discretion to do so, but we're just saying that Then there's other groups that have been trying to acquire parcels, and we've asked them to utilize this process to do so.
Okay. I mean, I haven't heard anybody ask about any of the other ones on this list. So
there are 40 participants in the meeting, and so they're all understanding that the process is going to be the one that was described to you all in the staff report and that we brought forward with earlier. And that they'll have an opportunity to compete to develop affordable housing.
Right.
We are encouraging groups, for example, to utilize Adopt a Spot on the Greenway as the preferred strategy because staff resources are stretched so thin. And because this site in its current condition is, with all due respect, you may want to visit it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I understand. Well, and there's a lot of details that could be decided later as it relates to some of that stuff by future council. My motion stands as is. Councilmember Bates, you had an amendment that you were suggesting?
Well, I was going to second the motion with an amendment, but before we proceed, I'd like the council to rule, our legal counsel. This surplus property has a value, whether it's 100,000 or 200. When we sell surplus property, do we not have to share this with the other taxing agencies, BART, AC Transit, a host of others? And if we arbitrarily give property away, what is our legal liability when an agency say you gave away $100,000 and we would do 25% of that or whatever? So I'd like to hear from Attorney Strickler.
So I'm going to ask Shannon. Shannon, have you looked at that issue directly?
No, I have not.
So do any of these properties, is there any ownership, real property interest that any other entity has in these properties? I think I'm asking staff at this point.
My understanding is that the parcels that were former successor agency parcels, those have to, as Vice Mayor Bates has indicated, the proceeds would have to be split with the 27 other taxing entities. We have not prepared the complete fiscal impact yet, Vice Mayor Bates, because we anticipate that we would do that at a later time after the parcels are then, the list is provided to the state and we commence with the next steps, which would include appraisals, and we would bring those, the final list and proposed sales back to the council at that time.
Well, the question is, are the properties that you're recommending tonight, do they fall in the category of surplus property?
Yeah.
Yes, some of them, yes, and then some of them are former successor agency, yes.
Then we ought to identify those properties that are successor agency. I don't think we can give away property to community groups that are part of the successor agency.
It's not one of those, just to be clear. The one that I exempted is not one of those. And also to be clear, my motion is not saying that, was not saying anything about that property. It's just leaving that to be decided later. That's
okay.
all. That's all my motion is doing with
okay.
45 first.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's the City of Richmond one.
Okay, my amendment is that we have a heavy emphasis up on smaller units for sale to younger and less fortunate financially individuals, that we should emphasize that aspect. And other than that, with that, I'll second the motion if you're agreeable to that.
I think I'm fine with that. That's basically just saying that we want to support and promote affordable home ownership.
Right.
So,
okay.
You know, sure.
Mayor Butt,
Mayor,
we may have missed one speaker.
I don't understand staff direction regarding this parcel in question, what the proposed.
My motion stands as I stated.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Can you repeat it, please?
So it's that we move forward with the list, but we take that off the list.
Okay, so you want to designate it, you don't want to designate it as surplus or surplus exempt? And so
right.
Are you directing, so then what do we do with it?
I think you guys could decide that. I mean, a future council could decide that.
Go there tomorrow, so I'm asking for direction.
I'm sorry?
Well, I said code enforcement could theoretically go there tomorrow because they don't have an agreement, so I'm asking for direction. I don't understand what we're supposed to do.
So I will say that I think the issue in front of the council is whether or not to designate it as surplus property. I think if staff is asking for, if we don't designate it as surplus property, what should we do with this property? If that's the question, that would need to come back on a later date. I think potentially that may be a staff level question, and then we can decide whether to bring it forward.
Okay, I'm gonna make a substitute motion, and it incorporates approving the list, and it incorporates Vice Mayor Bates' request. But I'm really uncomfortable at leaving this lot off the list. If I heard the staff report right, you know, up until today, the people who use that have not made any request to the city. They haven't shown up at any meetings. The city has no agreement with them for the use of the lot. It's all an informal arrangement. Is that right, Shasta?
I haven't, city manager's office staff have not found anything in the administrative record indicating that they have.
And no one who is actually using the lot has shown up tonight to speak on it, nor have they shown up at any workshops. And I think that, so my substitute motion would be to approve the list and then ask staff to try to identify the people who are using that lot and try to find them another place. You know, we've got all kinds of remnant parcels around that are not on the list that could be used for community gardens. And this is a valuable parcel. It can provide affordable housing for several people. And anyway, that's my substitute motion. I think we can ask staff to work with them to try to find another place. But
I'll second the motion, and I think it would be valuable for staff to come back with an appraised value approximately of each one of these sites, piece of property we're discussing. We need to know what the value of these sites are.
Councilmember Choi, you had your hand up earlier. You still want to speak?
Well, no, it was just the way things were going. I was wondering if we could declare surplus on a piecemeal basis, which sounded like what was being suggested. Because it struck me that the only option we had was either that it said the city is still using it or that it's surplus. I don't know that we have the choice to leave something in limbo.
Mayor, are we going to allow the speaker to speak?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have another speaker. Go ahead and allow the speaker to speak.
Okay. The speaker is Tarnell Abbott. Tarnell, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. In my memory of things from way back, Point Mulati was put on the surplus property list, and that was how Jim Levine managed to buy it for almost a dime. That said, I tried looking at the map on the Clark Road property, and I can't exactly tell where it is in relation to the Clark Road trailhead, which goes up El Sobrante, San Pablo Ridge, sorry, which is part of the East Bay Regional Park District. And I could not understand what was said when staff was answering Councilmember Martinez on that issue. But I think it should be, assuming it's right there near the trailhead, it should become part of the East Bay Regional Park District. And I want to know how you will ensure that piece of property gets put into the public park system. It's a very popular trailhead, and it's really a fabulous one where you feel like you go up that ridge and it's like you can see 360 degrees. It's amazing. You can see the entire Bay Area from on top of that. And it would be a shame to lose that to a private housing development or something like that. So I would like you to make sure council that you tell staff what you want and preserve that bit of open space if it is what I think it is, which is right near the trailhead to the Clark Ridge Trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was the last speaker.
Yes.
Okay, we'll vote on the substitute motion first.
Mayor Butt, did you want us to respond or no?
Say again?
Did you want us to clarify the issue regarding the Clark Road APN?
Sure.
Okay, that's APN 435-200-004. The current zoning is RL1 single family, very low density residential. The vacant property is currently an access point for the East Bay World Off School. The property is not being utilized by the city for any government purposes and is suitable for future development. That is what the list currently says. Would you, as was mentioned on the other property, is this one that you would like us to further discuss at this time?
What's the question?
I was providing clarity for the administrative record regarding Councilmember Martinez inquiry pertaining to parcel 435-200-004, which I believe is the property he was referencing on Clock Road, but I'm not for certain.
Well, I would, and I think with our work with the El Sobrante group, we discovered that land actually isn't good for development geologically.
Okay, everybody got their questions answered? Let's do a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Okay, this is for the substitute motion to adopt the resolution approving the city's inventory of leased and owned properties, declaring 14 parcels surplus land and 71 parcels as exempt surplus land in accordance with the Surplus Land Act, and incorporate Vice Mayor Bates' request to focus on affordable housing, and also to come back with an appraised value of all the sites.
And also to work with the people that are farming that Happy Lot farm, and try to find them another place to go.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bates?
Yes.
Councilmember Choi?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Was the Clark lot included for reconsideration? If not, I vote no.
What's the question?
Was the Clark lot included for reconsideration?
The what lot?
The Clark.
It's number 13. Yeah, he's asking if it's on the list, and it still is on the list.
There were no exclusions from the list in the motion that was on the table.
No.
Councilmember Myrick?
Abstain.
Councilmember Willis is absent. Mayor Butt?
Yes.
The motion passes with Councilmember Martinez voting no and Councilmember Myrick abstaining. Okay, our next item is item G12. Anyone wishing to speak on that item, please raise your hand now by pressing the raised hand button if you're joining us by video. Press the star and the number 9 button if you're joining us by phone. Item G12 is to approve an appointment to the Planning Commission.
Wait, no, I pulled that. I pulled that off permanently.
Okay, so you're withdrawing.
I'm withdrawing it. Yeah, I think we're on item G15 now.
Yes, okay. Item G15, anyone wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand now. Item G15 is to approve the third amendment to the contract with Liebert Cassidy Whitmore in the amount of $700,000, which will increase the total contract amount to $875,000 for the continuation of labor negotiations and other legal services through June 30th, 2022.
Who requested this be removed?
Mike Parker.
Okay.
And Mike Parker, your hand is not raised.
Well, let's have a short staff report, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Anil Comello. I'm the city's HR director. The contract amendment for Liebert Cassidy Whitmore is in the amount of the increase of $700,000, which will bring the total to $875,000 for a term ending June 30th, 2022. Liebert Cassidy Whitmore specializes in labor law in the public sector and thus represents public agencies in public matters, on labor matters, including bargaining, but also helps public agencies in disciplinary hearings, arbitrations, and investigations. The reason public agencies use, such as including the city of Richmond, contract with firms such as Liebert Cassidy Whitmore is because the labor law is very complex. By contracting with firms such as LCW, the city gains access to lawyers in a variety of specialty areas. I should point out that the city eliminated its labor relations manager position earlier this year as part of the budget process and saved almost $300,000. I should also point out that while we are asking for $700,000 for a term limit until 2022, the funding will be used on an as-needed basis. I plan to collaborate with the city attorney's office to engage in an RFP process to select law firms to assist with legal matters. And again, I should point out that the law firm that we are using right now will not be the only law firm on labor matters, and they don't always only engage in labor negotiations. They also assist with other matters, including discipline, investigations, and arbitrations. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from council members? Would you call the public speakers?
I had
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
question, but I wanted to talk to our HR director and also our legal attorney. We have professional staff aboard, and as I've always indicated, we have 5, 7 thereabout attorneys in the office. I don't understand why we continue. I do understand certain technical matters, but some of these matters, I think, can easily be handled by HR director as well as the city attorney and her staff. So is it the intent from the two of you, you're going to be more active in utilizing staff and cutting down on the cost of outside legal counsel?
Well, the first answer to that is absolutely. We plan to collaborate, and we are already handling certain aspects of investigations, for example, in-house. In the last 3 months that I've been here, I've handled a couple of investigations within the office. We also plan to use other attorneys. The challenge for us is this. We have a relatively small legal office under the city attorney's office. And while we have a couple of attorneys who have employment law experience, labor law is very specialized. And in fact, by engaging in contract with law firms such as Liebert Cassidy, we get access to their whole suite of lawyers in various specialty areas. Specialty areas include, for example, working with CalPERS, investigations, arbitrations, and so on, that are very, very, very specialized.
Well, I appreciate that, but I would suggest that both you and the city attorney just drop memos to the councils to let us know. Instead of going out for legal counsel, this is handled internally. That gives us some idea and appreciation of what you're doing, as opposed to just seeing these vouchers and payment for all kind of outside individuals come forward. Just give us a little memo to that effect, and it'll get some intelligent observation of what you're doing.
I'm sorry, Teresa. Let me give an example. This week, just this week, we settled a termination case for a police officer that went back 8 years. That was very, very specialized. It had to do with safety rules. Also this week, we settled on a discipline matter for a police officer that had to do with complex arbitration, as well as Skelly processes. So again, we need some expertise from the outside, and that's the only reason we use it. We plan to be on a go-forward basis, be very careful and judicious in our uses of outside attorneys. With that, I'll let the city attorney respond.
Thank you, Anil. Mr. Vice Mayor, I agree that we need to look very carefully at what work is being done in-house with the attorneys that you have in-house, and what work is being farmed to outside counsel. I started on November 9th. I have been working with HR very carefully to do both a needs analysis, looking at the work we have in the office, spending time with each of the attorneys and with the departments to understand what services we have, what work is being done in-house. Does that continue to make some sense? And so I am actively looking at that very issue. Is there a way that we can leverage our attorneys in-house to do additional work and be very careful and strategic about what work goes out of house? When it comes to labor negotiations and sitting at the bargaining table, that is probably an area, particularly where you're in a situation where you are pretty far down the process, you haven't reached an agreement. That's an area that typically most public agencies will tend to use outside counsel for those services, rather than having the in-house attorneys take on that particular role. But there is other work that the Liebert firm has been doing and will continue to do that we may try to bring back in-house. As you all may know, we have one member who was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, one of the senior assistant city attorneys who has been with the office for a very long time and has a great deal of experience, is retiring. His last day is at the end of this week. And so we currently are going to have a vacancy. We are trying to absorb that. I'm working with HR in terms of planning and needs going forward. So we are actively in labor negotiations right now. Liebert has been doing a great deal of work, and it is my recommendation that we go ahead and approve the contract. Again, it's a not to exceed amount. It does not mean that all of the money will necessarily be spent. And we are being very mindful of what the plan is going forward for legal services. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to ask. But I do agree that looking hard at what is happening in-house is an important part of this.
Any other questions from council members? Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah, the increase is from what, 175,000 to 700,000. Why such a large increase?
So we want to make sure that we can have a contract in place that goes all the way until 2022. There'll be several negotiations that will occur between now and then. And again, as Teresa and I both have said, we don't necessarily plan to use the full amount. We just want to make sure that we have the capacity to utilize the services should be required.
Okay, and there's you mentioned different venues that the money would be spent in. Some of it labor negotiations, some of it investigations, and other things. Could you give me a possible ratio of where those monies would be spent? Which streams would take up how much?
Well, this year was a little unusual because we spent a little bit of money on COVID. Hopefully that will never ever happen again. But I would say a vast majority, I would say 60 to 70% of what we spend on attorneys from this pool will probably go to some form of either bargaining or representation. What I mean by representation is if a union opposes a particular initiative of a manager or is challenging some process, we have attorneys a lot of times representing us. We also have attorneys representing us in discipline processes and arbitrations. Right now, as you may know, we are going through a fact-finding process for a CIU. That is very specialized. We don't have internal capacity or or expertise in that arena. And so we have had Lieber Cassidy assist us and shepherd us through that process.
So 60% of 875 would be what? 400,000?
Again, that's a rough number. It just depends on how the agency chooses to utilize its resources. And as the city attorney mentioned, as we on a go-forward basis, that percentage may change.
Okay.
I just got one last question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Recognizing our deficit in the budget, where is this additional funds coming from?
Well, for this year, I believe it was 120,000. I'm blanking. It's in my budget. Mind you, this is for the entire period until 2022. So it'll have to be in my budget for the next year.
Other questions from council members? Call public speakers, please.
Okay, we have 3 speakers, David Reinerson, Mike Parker, and Tarnell Abbott. I'll start with David Reinerson. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. Once again, sorry for the confusion. This is Debbie Bayer using David Reinerson's computer. So I'm glad I have a chance to speak to this because although the attorney said, well, we don't have to use all this amount and, it's just there. I find it very concerning that because what you're voting on, it said increase the amount in our contract with this law firm by $700,000 for labor negotiations and other stuff. That was the writing that you're going to vote on, the agenda item. And when I first looked at that, I thought, wow, they're trying to get $3 million out of the bargaining unit. However you guys are going after wages, furloughs, benefits, whatever. And they want, but we need to get $3 million because we got, still leaves us with a deficit. But you base the budget for next year on that $3 million that they're going to get out of the bargaining unit. And then you are spending almost $1 million on the labor negotiator. So maybe they won't spend it all on negotiations. Maybe they'll spend it on, other things like disciplining employees or whatever. But still, you're voting to give them $875,000 to negotiate a contract, and you need to get $3 million out of that contract. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mike Parker. Mike, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can start.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what the last speaker said. So we're paying we're raising the amount that we're going to pay our attorneys by $700,000 because we're intent on bargaining $3 million in concessions from the unions. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, actually, but it's a bigger question than just the bargaining for the labor bargaining. It's the whole way in which the council has been outsourcing legal expenses and spending money on very expensive outside legal support when it's not absolutely clear that it's either necessary or that it's productive. So I'm not necessarily opposed to having outside counsel come in, but I think that at first the city council has to have a study session about how its legal expenses are being paid and what we're paying for doing. So I would like this thing held over until at least the next council meeting so that they can set up a study session and figure out what a strategy is on this. That would also give the city attorney time to do this. Also, I believe that we have to reconsider how we're doing labor negotiations. I've been involved in some. I don't think it's necessary to have council do most of the negotiations when all you're doing is amending contracts very slightly and only discussing questions of wages or something else. Yes, you need the council to come in at the end and look at the final language, but the negotiations don't need to be carried on by the council. So I would urge this to be held over. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Tarnell Abbott. Tarnell, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Tarnell Abbott, Richmond resident, SEIU member of COPE. You know, this particular firm is actually very well known for being, I would say, hostile to labor. And I think as a city, one of the things you're going to have to figure out is, do you or do you not respect working people and the right for them to be in a union, for them to have decent wages, to have decent benefits, and be able to have decent retirement? If you don't believe in supporting working people, then yeah, these are your folks, because these are the folks who are going to whittle away at whatever concessions the bargaining units have managed to make. And it's really quite offensive that this city, which was built by working people, should have such an anti-working attitude that they're trying to give $1 million or close to this firm whose main focus is to get as many concessions as they possibly can out of working people. So yeah, I know where you'll get the money for this. All you got to do is lay off a few SEIU members and then you'll be able to afford these guys. Why are you doing this? You have an HR department, you have a legal department. They can negotiate with the bargaining unit, but you're just being boondoggled with this. You don't have to go this way, and you should stand up to staff and say, no, we're going to do it differently. There's a lot of creative ways, and you're not even scratching the surface. Have you even consulted with the bargaining units about how to save money? Have you? I don't think so.
Was
Your
that the
time
last?
has expired. Thank you. And yes, that was the last speaker.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments from council members? I would entertain a motion.
I'll move the item.
Okay, motion by Choi, did I see?
Yep.
Second by Bates, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bates,
Yes.
Councilmember Choi,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
No.
Councilmember Myrick is absent. Councilmember Willis is absent, and Mayor Butt.
Yes.
The motion passes. Councilmember Martinez voting no, and Councilmembers Myrick and Willis absent.
So that brings us to G17, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Item G17 is any individuals that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your computer. If you're joining us by video, or select the star and the number 9 key if you are joining us by phone. Item G7 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager pursuant to Article 4, Section 1B1 of the city charter to modify the position control, the list of council approved employee positions, as long as there is no net negative impact to the city's operating budget. The city manager will seek city council approval prior to instituting any proposed change that would result in any additional budgetary impacts. And looks like we have one speaker for this one.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Butt, Vice Mayor Bates, and council members. I am LaShonda White, Acting Deputy City Manager for Internal Services. And if it is the pleasure of the council, I can quickly frame this issue before we go to public speakers. So the city manager would like authority from city council to modify the position control in order to meet the needs of the city of Richmond, as long as there is no net negative impact to the city's operating budget. The position control document, which is approved as part of each annual budget process, provides a list of all city full-time equivalent positions that are held within each department and highlights changes between fiscal years. We believe that the city manager is best suited in collaboration and coordination with department directors to determine if changes need to be made so that staff can appropriately and fairly compensate employees for the level of essential services that they provide to city employees, residents, and businesses. I would like to quickly highlight a few points about our request tonight. Number one, tonight's action actually reduces the authority that the city manager has used in the past. So in the past, the city manager would make changes to position control that might negatively impact the operating budget if he thought that action was warranted. Now we are stating that any proposed change that would result in additional compensation to an employee would not result in a negative impact to the city's operating budget if the city manager were able to approve it without council approval. Number two, this action increases transparency by highlighting changes in position control that were made between budget cycles. So although the city manager would be able to make appropriate changes to the position control administratively, all changes would still subsequently be brought before city council to ensure transparency. We would do that by highlighting the budget impacts and the justification for each change within future staff reports. Number three, this action maintains the city council's budget authority while allowing for operational needs that often change within a fiscal year. So this action will not allow the city manager to make position control changes that would put us outside of the council's budget authority as set during the budget approval process. In the event that a proposed change to a position would result in a negative budgetary impact to the operating budget, the city manager will seek city council approval prior to making any changes. The authority provided by the city council tonight would not mean that the city manager would make a decision in a vacuum without input from staff. It also does not mean that the city manager would circumvent any existing processes and or policies established in the personnel rules or other relevant policies. However, any requested changes to the position control would involve communication and collaboration between department heads, finance and HR staff, the deputy city manager, and the city manager. I don't know. So that is
Are there any questions?
I wanted to just express my appreciation to the city manager for coming forward with this idea. This is long overdue, and we have gotten ourselves in some financial positions unnecessarily because the last administration was just, uncontrollable. And the city manager has taken a step to rectify and put in some controls. And I want to applaud her for doing so. And I eagerly support it and will vote for it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Are there any speakers?
There are three.
Three speakers.
What?
3 speakers for this item.
Okay. Call them, please.
Okay, I have Mike Parker, Deborah Bayer, and Tarnell Abbott. I'll start with Mike Parker. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. I think the city manager has a very difficult job, and I want the city manager to actually be able to manage. And I have no objection when things happen in a department to change things around. But I also want to point out that budget that is set up and how it's distributed is really a question of the city determining its values. And so when we set up something and we have a discussion about how much money should be used by one department and how much money should be used by another department, we're basically setting the priorities of the city. Unfortunately, the way this is worded is that it allows the city manager to make changes which would say fill positions in the police department by not filling positions in the library. I think that there should be some changes made to this which basically eliminate that possibility and at the same time allowing the city manager to be able to actually manage in each department. But if a change has to be made about the relative weight or budget from one department to the next, that should come to the council first, not after the decision has been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Deborah Baird. Deborah, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Thank you. Basically, my concern was the same as what Mike just said. It's one thing to say, well, as long as you can change power between, you know, where we put our money was a big debate that we had earlier this year. You know, people spoke up for the libraries, people spoke up for park and recreation, people talked about the police, and whatever was hammered out, you know, was there. It was a portion between departments. And for the city manager to change things within departments, that the department heads want to be changed, so that makes perfect sense. She doesn't, you know, but to change positions, which is basically changing money between departments, once it's been publicly really discussed and agreed to, that seems to me is shifting really the priorities that we've accepted already, taking that away from the council, giving it a city manager. And the fact that it doesn't cost more money to the city isn't really the point here. Great, it'd be nice, it doesn't cost more money, but what it's doing is empowering one department or in supporting one department more than another. So that is my objection to this, and I think it could be fixed with an amendment.
That was the last speaker.
No, we have one more.
Okay.
I'll take Tarnell Abbott. You have 2 minutes to speak. You can go ahead and start.
Colonel Abbott, Richmond resident, voter, homeowner. I agree with the prior 2 speakers, and I also come at this from the perspective of having worked at the city of Richmond for 22 years in the library, where every budget year, the department heads would be asked to cut another, 5%, 10%, whatever it was. They kept being asked to cut and cut and cut their budgets. And of course, the library would cut their budget. And it's really gotten to the point where, it's a shadow of its former self. Obviously, COVID is a whole different layer on top of the layer. But the point is, if you don't have a pushy, and I'm going to use the word greedy, I just can't think of a better word right now, but a pushy department head who will say, well, no, I need $750 million more because I got to hire real experts here, and my job's more important and my department's more important, and then so you put your money where your mouth is. And that's your job as the council. You're not there to follow the staff. You're there to lead the staff. You're there to lead the city manager even, not the other way around. You need to set the parameters, and this just gives too much wiggle room to mess with the budget. So you can fix it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no more speakers.
Any further questions or comments from council members? Councilor Martinez, you have something?
Yes, I'd like to move the item with an amendment. And the amendment would be on the third whereas the city manager would like authority to modify the position control as necessary, as long as there's no negative impact to the city's operating budget. I would like to add, or transfer of funding from one department to another. And then to mirror that in the resolved part, after now therefore be it resolved that the Richmond City Council authorizes the city manager to modify the position control, and then here we put in within budgeted departments. and then continue in order to meet the operational needs of the city. Those are the two changes I'd like to make.
I don't hear a second.
Could we get a response from the city manager?
Yeah, city manager, you want to address this?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So we will work within the council's authority, and as LaShonda has said, we are already trying to be more transparent and clear. And I hear the concern about priorities and not wanting to radically change things once council has been clear with their budget in terms of what their priorities are. I do think operationally there are sometimes exceptions that prove to be operationally difficult. So we will continue to bring things to you. If you want to move forward with this as amended, we will continue to bring forward certain things that we need to do throughout the year to the city council. And I'm trying to think of a specific example. I'm not always as fast on my feet as I want in terms of where this might prove difficult. But because of the limitations that we're already putting on, I don't know how often we're going to use it, and this would be a further limitation. So it's the council's policy choice.
So
I do think operationally it provides a little bit of difficulty. This is there's no intention of radically changing anything, and the HR director may have a specific example to better illustrate the type of things that
let me follow up on that question. The way this was originally written, would it allow you to transfer budgets from department to department? In other words, could you take a position in the police department that's budgeted and transfer that budget amount to the library and hire 2 librarians or something? Could you do that or not?
Yes.
You could.
Yes.
So it sounds like Councilor Martinez, his amendment would be to disallow that.
Correct. Yeah.
But you can live with it. Is that what you're telling us?
I can live with it. It will, again, provide some operational challenges potentially from time to time. But we try really hard in the annual budget process to get things really right, so that every year we would be working, as much as possible within that framework. And the HR director, I think, has some additional information.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the extent possible, of course, if the amendment passes, it limits the flexibility of managers to adjust based on a variety of reasons. You may have a situation where there's a workload issue in one department and we need to transfer on a permanent basis, and you want to transfer an employee or 2 to that other department. And being able to transfer employees in this case would be certainly helpful. We can, of course, bring that item back to the council for approval during the budget process, and as we always do. But having to go to council during the interim, during the year, may prove to be just operationally difficult, time-consuming, and frankly, not as efficient. I can think of some specific examples that where this might be actually very helpful right now, where there's a department or work group that is not fully utilized and there's a need in another department, and we could really utilize the employees in a different group. So again, this was not going to happen often. This is going to happen actually very rarely, but when it needs to happen, I believe that the city manager should have the authority to take care of this. This is not a policy issue, this is an operational issue.
And let me clarify, my understanding is that there wouldn't be sort of, well, let me ask Councilmember Martinez. My understanding of this is that if we had existing employees and we needed to move those existing employees to do, a similar job in another department, but for instance, we're doing some reorganizational changes, that this would, your amendment would not try to affect that. So we would take the budget with those employees and be able to move them. This would simply be if there were sort of vacancies or new positions that we were creating, not taking money from one department just to spend it on a completely different purpose in a different department. I think it's the purposes that you're trying to preserve. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
And I really don't see how much more difficult it is to bring it to the city council. I mean, you do that already. It works, and it should continue to work because we are granting you a lot of power, even with this amendment.
Could we, and maybe I would need a little more help from staff, would you be amenable, obviously I can't propose a change to your motion, but would you be amenable to having there be that clarification that it's the purposes that you don't want changed between departments?
Well, I think the language is self-evident, and I think this is a conversation we can have further. I mean, even if we pass this, we can still bring it back and change it.
Yeah.
You know, and so what I'm trying to do is to create language that will not have us have to bring it back.
So I've forgotten whether we had a motion or not. I think you made you made the motion with the amendment, Councilmember Martinez, right?
Right. And we're waiting for a second.
Is there a second? I don't hear a second. Do we have another motion?
Well, could I ask, I thought the intent was to support the city manager and she would respond back to us when she moved in that direction. Is that not correct? She would inform us of the action proposed.
So the item tonight would provide the city council with authority to make changes to position control as long as there was no net negative impact to the budget. If there was no impact to the budget, then we would bring the changes that were made by the city manager administratively back to city council just for transparency purposes, so you would see them. But if an item or a change was proposed and it would have a negative impact, we would bring that to you prior to approval so the city manager would not be able to approve it on her own. We would bring it to city council and city council would make changes to position control.
Okay, I move the item as recommended by the city manager.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Choi, motion by Bates. Call the roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Bates,
Yes.
Councilmember Choi,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
No.
Councilmember Myrick. Absent. Councilmember Willis is absent. Mayor Butt.
Yes.
The motion passes with Councilmember Martinez voting no, Councilmembers Myrick and Willis absent.
Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
what? That brings us to item I, right?
Item I is reports of officers, referrals to staff, and general reports, including AB 1234 reports.
Anybody have any reports?
I
Um,
would
Go
like to
ahead.
ask just to clarify that I understand that the council would like a special meeting on Monday, December 28th, and also on January 5th, Tuesday, January 5th. And I just want to clarify that everyone will be available.
Available for closed session on Monday.
Okay.
And available for a open session on the 5th, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is anyone that's present tonight not available? Okay.
You're muted.
Councilmember Choi, are you trying to say something or are you?
Yeah, sorry.
talking to yourself?
My little speaker thing was blocking my mute. Is there any reason why we're choosing to have that closed session on Monday rather? I know this is the dates we set on yesterday, but I'm wondering why the practice of having a Monday rather than a Tuesday closed session.
Make you ask questions. I don't know that, our closed session was on Monday and it was on Monday this week and we just said, let's do it a week from today. That's my take on it.
Would it be possible? How is people's availability on Tuesday?
Well, I start celebrating the new year on Tuesday, so if you want me totally conscious, it has to.
We're talking about next week, right?
You start on Tuesday through Friday?
Yeah,
Wow,
absolutely.
that's a decent trek.
That's what keeps me young.
I mean, it is Kwanzaa.
Does anybody have any objection to doing it on Tuesday instead of Monday? I don't see any objection, so it sounds like we could do it Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. You better be there.
Oh, I'll be there.
What are you doing on Monday?
Any other reports?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to compliment my distinguished council member, Eduardo Martinez, for the nice letter that he read from Zoshan with respect to Mr. Mazorka's. Very well done, Mr. Martinez, and thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else? I think we're ready to adjourn. We did this yesterday, but I'm going to do it again to adjourn the meeting in memory of Jim Mazorkas, our port director. Okay, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
At 8:53. Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas, you filthy animals.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Good night.
Good night.